Hi, hello, good morning. Welcome to Spardha Lines and daily news analysis for the KAS examination in English. Today we have picked up a couple of important articles from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the Deccan Herald newspapers. So what are you waiting for? Hit the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants as well. We have two important announcements before we start with our daily news analysis. The first is with respect to the KPSC notification. We have the KPSC which has issued the notification yesterday. So you should be much aware that when it comes to the notification, there are many posts and all that you need is one single position and you don't have to worry about the competition. So if you have that one single seat, read, study like that one seat is meant for you and you should be able to crack this examination. In order to crack this examination, we have come up with the plan. And this happens to be Spardha Lines Current Affairs Test Series. So the first Current Affairs test will be on 10th of March, second one will be on 24th, 31st, 7th, 14th as well as 21. And this is just for the cost of 899. It's free for the Spardha Line students. And in the Kannada version as well, we do have the versions. We have the Spardha Lines Rajyadyanta Prachalita Vidyamanagala Pariksha Sarani and it will only cost you about 899. So these current affairs test series will ensure that all aspects of current affairs are covered. You will be able to crack the nut from the current affairs front. ಅಮೂಲ್ಯ ಬಿ ಟಿ ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಸರ್. ನಮಸ್ತೆ ಅಮೂಲ್ಯ ಅವರೇ, ನಮಸ್ತೆ. ಸೊ ಅಮೂಲ್ಯ ಅವರೇ, ಏನೇ ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ ಇದ್ದರೂ ನೀವು ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಪಿಂಗ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು, ಕಮೆಂಟ್ ಸೆಕ್ಷನಲ್ಲಿ ಹಾಕ್ಬೋದು. ನಿಮ್ಗೇನೇ ಡೌಟ್ ಇದ್ದರೂ ಇಮಿಡಿಯೇಟಾಗಿ ನಾವಿಲ್ಲಿ ಕ್ಲಾರಿಫೈ ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. Let's get started. I'll look into the first article for the day. The first article says, Gandhiji realized the making of India as a nation did not require erasure of the linguistic diversities. What is this article speaking about? The article here is comparing two important countries. One is the European countries, the other is the Indian civilization and the country. When we focus about the European civilization or the European countries, what exactly happens? The focus is on one single language. That language has to be language which will be understood by the majority of the people, and countries are designed and borders are drawn only on the basis of the language. If at all there are too many languages within a specific boundary, this could ultimately result in balkanization as well. This will ultimately result in breaking away of the countries. So what this article says is that when it comes to the European countries, all that they believe is in one nation, one language concept. But when it comes to the Indian civilization, but when it comes to India as a country, we are living, we are promoting, we continue to exist and we will continue to exist as part of one single civilization where it is not one language per se, but it is the respect of the diversity is what is this article all about. So this article also brings about a narrative about how European political theory was and how Gandhiji contributed to this idea of diversity. There can be a main space question that will be asked, so where they can ask you what is the viewpoint of Gandhiji about one language, one nation, so on and so forth. So if we have to compare Europe along with the Indian civilization, what is that we have to focus on? Europe in the 19th and the early 20th century, European political theory, they completely understood that if at all there is a country, this country should be based on one single language. It can be English, it can be French, it can be German, whichever the language is. So there is one country, there are people who are living in that particular country, they have one uniform language, and it is this uniform language that will be recognized by the constitution and the laws of the country. So if it is one single country, it will be one single language. It is that language which will be recognized as the official language by the government as well as by the laws of the country. So if we look into the data, in his representative text, Representative Government, 1869, John Stuart Mill wrote, linguistic diversity was a special, virtually inseparable hindrance to the nation making. So what did John Stuart Mill say? He says that according to him, if at all there are multiplicity of languages or too many languages, in that particular case, it can create vociferous tendencies. It can become an hindrance to the nation making. It can become problematic as well. It can create more vociferous tendencies as well. This can create a blockage to the people to gel up, and ultimately this cultural differences, too many languages, could be a major hindrance for the making of the country. So what did John Stuart Mill say? John Stuart Mill clearly said that linguistic diversity was a special, virtually inseparable hindrance to the nation making. Further, according to the European political theory, they also based the argument and said that diverse languages within a single nation would only deepen separatism. In fact, if you consider France, what we have is one of the official languages, which happens to be French. French is the only recognized national language of France even today. Since 1700s, they have been trying to unify the country through a single language. So there were multiple regional languages, let's say for example Alsatian, Basque, Breton, Catalan among others, which were stifled through various government sponsored measures. What do we understand by this? According to the European political theory, they basically believe that too many languages within a particular region or a specific boundary, it can lead rise to separatism, because they would want to re-emphasize their culture, and ultimately it is the re-emphasization of the culture which will take forward the legacy of that particular language and the country. So too many languages means too many conflicts means too many separative forces, and ultimately this will not help according to the European political theory. If we have to take the example, the author brings into the concept that in France, from the French Revolution period and subsequently after that as well, they were trying to unify the country on the basis of recognizing French as one single language. So if at all French is recognized as one single language, that will act as a unifying force. In order to act as a unifying force, couple of other languages that were present like the Alsatian, Basque, Breton, Catalan were all had to be stifled, they had to be eliminated, they were had to be thrown out, or these people who prefer this language had to be turned into another country as well. So France as a country was supporting only French as a language because it was acting as a unifying force, and ultimately eliminated every other language. So the author goes on to say there are two types of nations. One happens to be a nation state, the other happens to be a state nation. What is the nation state? An example of a nation state happens to be France. So what happened in France? France is recognized as the national language of France. French is recognized as the national language of France, and in order to promote it, many other languages had to be stifled. Many other languages had to be thrown out from France as well. So when you say nation state, it means that there is one single uniform language for the length and breadth of the country, which is being promoted as part of the constitution, as part of the law, as part of the people's mandate, and rest of the languages are either ignored or not respected equally. That is one part. Then we have something called as the state nations. What are these state nations? State nations are an example where we have it like India. Within India, we have these regional states. Languages become very important and are emotive issue as well. States are created on the basis of language. So there is country of India, the Bharat, and within the fold of Bharat, we also have the states which are divided on the basis of linguistic diversity. As much as we respect the majority, we also respect the minority languages as well. So within the fold of India, there are majority languages, there are also minority languages, but within the states, these are majority languages. So identification, clear concatenation of the boundary on the basis of language and linguistic diversity is the way for India. So when we say state nations, it is nothing but identification of a country on the basis of drawing of the boundary on the linguistic basis, and that's what keeps India turning, that's what keeps India running, says this article. So we have we have Gandhi. He realized India is a civilization clearly, but India could also be made into a nation, and the making of India as a nation did not require erasure of India's linguistic diversities in the European way. So the author is trying to say in this particular parameter that Gandhiji respected the value of diversity, and it is this diversity that has to carry forward the legacy of India. So uniformity will not work for India, it is only the diversity that will work for India. If we have to take the example of Pakistan, was divided earlier immediately after independence into what is called as the West Pakistan and the East Pakistan. Predominantly in the West Pakistan, what we had was the practice of a language in the form of Urdu, and in the East Pakistan we had the practice of people speaking Bangladesh, Bengali. Despite having the same religion which was acting between Pakistan, that is in the West Pakistan and East Pakistan, there are language differences. So Pakistan did not respect these language differences, and ultimately Western Pakistan was broken and continues to be Pakistan, but Eastern Pakistan from 1971 goes on to become Bangladesh. So Eastern Pakistan is basically nothing but the newly created Bangladesh, and it is Bengali which is recognized in Bangladesh. So this ultimately means that if you do not respect the language diversity within the country, that people, when their emotions are not respected, can also help in creation of a new country, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article is important from your preliminary examination point of view. The article here is speaking about one of the minerals that is discovered, or a novel material named called as MnBIS-24. So the researchers from the Jawaharlal Nehru Center for Advanced Scientific Research in a discovery in the field of magnetoelectronic material. So this happens to be a magnetoelectronic material, have identified a unique mechanism of electric polarization via magnetic ordering in a novel mineral named MnBI2S4, which can be helpful in energy efficient data storage. So let us try and understand what is this mineral all about. This mineral exhibits a unique mechanism of inducing electric polarization via magnetic ordering. MnBIS-24 is also known as mineral graphite and belongs to the ternary manganese glacogenesite family. These are facts. They won't ask you any of these details in your mains examination, but when these facts are given to you, you should be in a position to decipher whether this particular fact is right or not about this mineral. So when it comes to this mineral, it is also known as mineral graphite and belongs to the ternary manganese glacogenite family. By conducting a detailed study using high resolution neutron diffraction, they decide that the spin density wave as well as the cycloidal and helical spin structure. They found that the last two spin structure include ferroelectricity in the material. So they basically have discovered it, and this mineral has the ability to exhibit the same phenomenon at room temperature. It could pave the way for energy efficient manipulation of spin using small electric field. This in turn could revolutionize the data storage by reducing energy consumption drawing writing processes. These are some of the important facts that you have to remember from the preliminary examination point of view. Now let's look into the next article. This article says India specific AI model to find gestational age developed. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about one of the developments made in India called as Garbini GA2. So the researchers have developed an India specific artificial intelligence model to precisely determine the gestational age of a fetus in the second and the third trimester of pregnancy. What are we speaking about? We are speaking about Garbini INI. What is it? It stands for Group for Advanced Research for Birth Outcomes. INI stands for India Initiative. So the Garbini GA2 is the first late trimester GA transformation model to be developed and validated using India population data. Currently, when we speak about how the fetus age is identified, so on and so forth, we have imported a Western construct. Currently, models used for Western population are in use which could prove erroneous when applied in the later part of pregnancy due to variations in the growth of the fetus in the Indian population. So you cannot always compare the West or the Western models with the Indian models, because the rate at which the fetus grows varies from the Western model to that of the Indian model. So in order to understand how growth of the fetus has taken place in the womb of a mother, what we have is the Garbini GA2. It accurately estimates the fetus age, reducing error by almost 3 times. So it reduces the age by about 3 times, and that happens to be an important parameter. The Indian data would help to provide appropriate care for pregnant women and determine the precise date of birth, thus reducing maternal and infant mortality rates. And the application of sophisticated data science tools are not sufficient, ensuring the technological advancements yield tangible benefits and end-to-end partnership between clinicians and the data scientists. These are some of the important parameters that we have to remember from the examination point of view. Nitin, good morning. Mahirani, good morning. Wali, good morning. Mahirani, you're not seen these days. What's happened with you? So please do join our classes regularly, because we do have some good important updates coming up for you all, and we are picking up almost important articles that can be asked in your preliminary examination. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article here is picked up from the Indian Express. This article here is picked up from the Deccan Herald newspapers. As we have promised, we do take up articles from the Hindu, the Indian Express and the Deccan Herald newspaper. The article is picked up from the Deccan Herald newspaper. The article focuses on solving the plastic crisis. We need to calm down about plastics. What does this article say? This article here is speaking about a scam. What is this scam? This is about greenwashing. What is greenwashing? What is greenwashing basically is an environmental concept. So let's say, for example, people are becoming environmentally active. They do want to contribute to the cause of the society as well as to the environment. So anything that is polluting the environment, or anything which has secondary effects to the environment, which is detrimental to the environment, people do not prefer that particular product as well. So in order to ensure that people promote environmental cause, companies promote environmental cause, what do? They come up with an ad, or they come out with a product saying that if you buy this particular product, this product will be very good. They also say that if you buy this particular product, the amount of impact that this particular product has on the environment reduces over a period of time. So greenwashing basically is, it is an ad. It is also a projection of a project, or a projection of a project, or a projection of an identity of the company, that they are environmentally friendly. But if you look at the reality, they are not environmental friendly, but they are just greenwashing, which means they do not actually promote any environmental advantages, but it is being promoted as having the environmental advantages. They do not have any advantages on the environmental front. The data clearly points out that they do not have any kind of significance that is being added to the environment. There is no significant impact or the advantages that is emanating out of it, but the projection of the project or the product or that particular identity of the company is such that it is projecting that their product is environmental friendly, which is called as greenwashing. So what is greenwashing? Greenwashing basically is that particular concept or a product of a company which is being promoted as environmental friendly, but the data clearly shows that it is not environmental friendly, but it is adding significant harm to the environment. Why are we discussing about greenwashing? That is because the article goes on to say that when it comes to plastics per se, it is the greenwashing process. How? For example, a company is releasing a plastic product into the environment. So what exactly happens? Whenever this particular product is released into the environment, there is a thought that is created by a company that plastic can be ultimately eliminated. It can also be recycled as well. This very thought that has been introduced by the company, that it can be recycled, reused and all that, is a greenwashing process. So basically it will take large number of years to ultimately ensure that we are pollution free of the plastic. But creating a perception, creating a narrative that we can reuse the plastic itself is part of the greenwashing, says this article. So basically when we say greenwashing, it will not have any significant impact, no positive outcome of that particular company. But even in this particular case of plastic, there is a narrative that is created, a perception that it is created, that this entire process of plastic, once it is out, the product is out, they would be able to recycle it and reuse it. But unfortunately it takes number of years to reuse and recycle it, is what is this article all all about? So the Center for Climate Integrity, a US non-profit, issued a report this month alleging oil and chemical companies perpetuated a decade-long campaign of fraud and deception about the recyclability of the plastics, combing through public and private statements to build a case for legal action against the companies. The report tells a powerful story about the difficulty of making the recycling work and incessant efforts of the plastic industry to pretend it more successful than it really is. So this article primarily focuses on these aspects, which ultimately go on to say that plastic crisis is here to stay. It is continued to stay, and it is companies which are projecting it that we would be able to reuse and recycle it, but that will not help because this happens to be a greenwashing initiative taken by the companies, says the author. That apart, when we speak about how the rich countries have been reducing their per capita carbon emissions, but the plastic pollution has been increasing ever after. So we have the control of oil usage. We also have an alternative, that is companies are also opting for, instead of oil or the energy, they are now using electric vehicles or the EV vehicles as well. So we are trying to reduce the pollution, and the number of users of oil producing cars or so on and so forth, use of oil in these cars have also been reduced, but plastic pollution continues to increase over a period of time, says this article. Despite they trying to do everything, we would not be able to reduce this entire issue, is what is this article all about. So what is it we have to do? It's substitution might not work for the plastic. It's dependent on the availability of viable alternative technologies. Wind and solar and electric batteries are cheaper, scalable and superior to the fossil fuels. Biodegradable and reusable plastics that we might want to use instead of conventional ones offer few improvements, while alternatives such as glass and aluminium are often worse in climate and environmental terms. So because we do not have a right substitute, how are we going to replace plastic with another one? How are we gonna find a substitute to the plastic? As long as we do not have the substitute or an alternative to the plastic, plastic is the only way forward. So this leaves lifestyle changes. So if at all we have to bring a change, we have to adapt and also bring a change when it comes to such an application. What is that we have to do? We have to bring about lifestyle changes. What are these lifestyle changes? Recently I came across an ad. It said that if you can carry a mobile phone which weighs so and so much, if you can carry your wallet which weighs so and so, why not carry a bag which weighs only about 10 grams or 20 grams whatsoever? So if at all you're going to a place, do not ask them for a plastic cover. Take a bag. Keep all this in this particular bag. Wherever you can use, avoid drinking water in the plastic until unless it's an emergency where you cannot go without it. So if we can switch to an alternative, that is what will help us, is what is this article all about. And do note, when it comes to greenwashing, it is also classified as an unfair trade practice by the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. So if a particular company says that its products are green, it will reduce the impact on the environment, it will reduce the carbon emissions, but when tested, if it goes on to prove that it is not meeting any of these intended standards, in that particular case, there can be case that can be filed against this particular company under the Consumer Protection Act, and compensation and damages can also be claimed from this particular company. Why? Because this is identified as unfair trade practice by the Consumer Protection Act of 2019. Mahirani, you've been little busy. I watched recorded classes. Thank you for that. We wish that you always come online like Nitin. Nitin also follows us regularly. So when we come to live classes, there could be a possibility of an interaction. So you will come up with something which I might not know. I will always teach something which I know. So we can have a deliberation when we discuss. But when it comes to the recorded classes, it will be a one-way channel where I would be delivering the lectures. There will be no interaction per se. So I would request Nitin, Mahirani and others to kindly come online every single day so that we can have a regular interaction. If there is something which I might not know, or your other fellow aspirants who are preparing, the minute you chalk out this particular plan or the information, they will also know about it as well. Yes, Pavitra Pura, Namaskara. And yes, Nitin says 3 are reuse, recycle and reduce. Yes, this is right. Carry bag, carry. Yes, good environmental practice. Yes, Nitin. Thank you, Mahirani. We will be waiting for you every single day. Now let's look into the next article for the day. This article says MSP law is a necessary signal to the farmers. This once again is taken from the Deccan Herald newspaper. What is this article all about? This article primarily goes on to say that we have the farmers who are asking the state and the country that what we require is a MSP in the form of a law. What is MSP? Minimum support price. What is the minimum support price? If at all the price of a particular product, for example an agricultural crop, let's say rice or wheat, is declining, it is not able to meet the market standards, in that particular case the government will immediately pay in a minimum amount of price so that it can procure this particular crop. So this minimum support price as of now happens on an executive resolution. Is there a law, a statutory provision that is passed by the parliament? No. Why? That is because when it comes to the minimum support price, there are a lot of vagaries that are involved. We have a lot of input that comes from a committee. We also have changes that takes place nationally, internationally as well. If it is a law, it becomes very stringent, and if it is a law, it is compulsory for them to follow this prescribed path. But when it comes to executive resolutions, it is far more easier to change as well. So MSP right now is not a law. It is not backed by a statutory provision, but instead it happens to be an executive resolution. So the government, the executive decides that for so and so crop, they have to give so much amount of money. For example, for 1 kg of rice, they have to give about 50 rupees. For 1 kg of wheat, they have to give about 75 rupees. So this executive resolution, depending on the recommendation of a committee, is what decides how much of money has to be paid to the farmer. This is far more flexible and it is not rigid, which is why we do not have a law as of now. But what are the farmers asking for? The farmers recently are protesting that what they require is a law, and this law should basically ensure that these farmers are provided a minimum support price as per the law established by the country. But what are the advantages? Why should MSP law make a statutory provision? That is because this article goes on to say there are a couple of things as to why MSP has to be converted into a law. Firstly, it won't be a physical disaster as some fear. MSP comes into the picture only when free market prices dip below, when on an average will happen only half the time. What do we understand by this? What the article says is that many people and many economists are also projecting that if at all MSP is sanctioned as a law, then there could be a lot of physical issues that come into the picture. What are the physical issues? For example, we have the money, the taxes that we have collected, which goes into the consolidated fund of India. It is from the consolidated fund of India that money is taken, and ultimately the product or a particular crop is procured, and it will be with the Food Corporation of India. So this particular crop that is brought by the government will ultimately be taken to the Food Corporation of India, and it is the Food Corporation of India which will add the rice or the paddy or, for example, the wheat to the public distribution system. So what many project is, as of now we are anyways doing it, why not make it a law? So if this is made into a law, it can increase the fiscal disaster, which means the government may have to spend far more than the existing one says, but this is not the right projection. Why? Because it will not be a fiscal disaster. Whatever you are continuing right now, that is added in the form of a law. And when does MSP come into the picture? MSP only comes into the picture when the product suffers, when the crop suffers, when the free market is not able to pay enough amount of money to that particular crop. Only then MSP is given to a farmer. So why not bring in a law which clearly gives out these preconditions as well as guidelines, as well as fix a criterion to it? That is when you would be able to prevent these vagaries, says the author. That's the first point. Second, as soon as the government intervenes to procure crops, the prices start moving up, negating the need to continue indefinitely. What do we understand by this? For example, we have the market forces. The market forces is what will decide how much is 1 kg of rice. It is the market forces which also decides how much is 1 kg of wheat. So how much of demand and supply is present in the market? It is on the basis of that a price of a product will decide. For example, there were Russia invading Ukraine. So what happened during this period? inflation increased. How? Because there was deficiency of supply of wheat. Many countries did not have the wheat to eat. So what exactly happened? Demand increased, supply reduced. So market forces increased the price of the wheat. Similarly, whenever the government intervenes, it basically means that the government is going to procure the product, so there will be more demand for it and prices will obviously increase. So in this particular backdrop, when prices in the market increase, there is no need for us to provide the MSP. So MSP is only provided when it falls below a particular benchmark. But when the government intends or plans to buy or procure this product, the market forces will basically believe that there could be a crunch of this particular resource, when the market forces immediately step in and the prices of the product increase. So we should come up with the MSP for a law, says this article. Thirdly, in effect, it is a price insurance mechanism needed because forward markets and commodity derived markets are not fully developed, are beyond the reach of the most farmers. These farmers do not understand how the commodity derivatives work or the forward market works. So in order to give them a reassurance, we have to come up with an MSP. MSP guarantee is a proxy for the price insurance absent for the forward markets. The time has come for an MSP law because of the several woe of the farming households. Hence, it is no longer relevant to merely evaluate the prospect of a law in terms of cost and benefits. So if we speak about farming community, we always speak about providing a sustainable living to the farming community, provide a fixed source of living to the farming community, suitability and strength and stability for the income of the farming community. So if at all they have to be provided the stability as well as a constant source of income feed, then if the MSP is provided, they will also be happy, they will also be guaranteed, they did not have to worry too much because they ultimately know that the government is going to procure their product. Farmers' usage can also be reduced as well. So what are we waiting for? MSP is the need of the hour. If at all we have to control any of these, MSP has to be provided, says this article. The proposed MSP guarantee is much like the Rural Employment Guarantee Act, which works as a proxy for the unemployment issuance. The scheme has proved to be a safety net during distress, famine, droughts as well as pandemic. We have the Manrega. What does it do? It provides 100 days of work to unskilled labor. These people whosoever is using Manrega right now are farmers. For example, they have worked during the peak period in a year for let's say about 200 days or 300 days. For about 100 days they will not have work. So what will they do? They get employed as unskilled labor within that particular area, within that particular radius as well. So as and when they are unemployed for a brief period of time, they are engaged in Manrega. So when they are engaged in Manrega, it basically means they are also provided certain amount of money. If MSP guarantee is given, they once again will be provided a certain amount of money. This will ultimately help the farmers overcome the issue, says this article. So basically, the farm sector has many risks that arise out of multiple sources: price volatility, climate change, induced seasonal wet and dry spells, pest attacks, world geopolitics, frequent bans on exports denying farmers windfall gains, and an anti-farmer pro-urban consumer bias in the policy. So in order to enable them that they have a continuous reform, what we have to do is provide them this minimum support price. So the sustainable solution to the farmer distress lies outside the agriculture, in industry and services. Meanwhile, several initiatives like Mandi law reform, relaxing export bans, allowing contract farming, credit to tenant farmers, incentives for crop diversification, electronic linking of mandis can all make a difference, large or small. So if at all we are able to bring these changes and adapt and also introduce the MSP law, it will not be a fiscally costly affair, but it is the farmers who will be empowered. They have a fixed source of income and stability in their lives, is what is this article all about. So basically this article goes on to conclude that MSP is the need of the hour. MSP should be provided to the farmers and it should not be declined to the farmers. Why? Because if at all it is declined, it is the farmers who are going to suffer, says this article. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this article. If you are liking these initiatives, please hit on the like button, subscribe to our YouTube channel and also share it with your fellow aspirants. And as I told you at the start, we are coming up with the current affairs test series. So please do subscribe to our current affairs test series and it just costs 899. Thank you for watching. All the best.